Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a genuinely fascinating journey to completely demystify the biological art of fungiculture right in your very own home. If you've ever been curious about the quiet, hidden world of mushrooms, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down the science, the setups, and all the secrets to growing your own spectacular fungi, step by step. So let's get started.
Okay, let's dive into this. If you've stepped foot in a specialty grocery store lately, you know for a fact that gourmet mushrooms can be ridiculously expensive. But what if you could harvest pounds of those exact same beautiful, fresh mushrooms right on your kitchen counter? Or maybe tucked away in a spare closet? By using a super simple monotub method, you can build a highly effective home setup for as little as $120 to $300. It's this minimal, one-time investment that yields an incredible, continuous biological reward.
Here is the roadmap for our hero's journey today. We'll be looking at starting your fungi journey, the best mushrooms for beginners, feeding your fungi, the 6 phases of growth, and wrapping up with managing pests and diseases.
Part 1. Starting your fungi journey. A different kind of harvest.
To really pull this off, we have to fundamentally rewire how we think about gardening. We are not growing plants here, we're partnering with a completely different kingdom of life. Just look at the stark contrast. Plants use sunlight for photosynthesis and they sprout from seeds in the soil, right? Fungi, on the other hand, don't photosynthesize at all. They get all their energy by biochemically digesting their environment. Instead of seeds, they reproduce using microscopic spores or colonized spawn. And instead of dirt, they need a specific substrate. Grasping this core difference, spores over seeds, substrate over soil, that is the absolute foundational mindset you need to succeed as a cultivator. Moving right along to part 2, best mushrooms for beginners. Choose your fungal companion. Now that we're basically thinking like mycologists, it's time to choose a steadfast companion for this journey. Keep in mind, not all mushrooms are equally forgiving. As a beginner, you want a species that grows fast and tolerates a few minor environmental hiccups. And this brilliantly illustrates how temperature preferences vary wildly. The pink oyster is incredibly fast and absolutely loves a warm summer home, thriving between 75 and 85 degrees. The blue oyster, though, it prefers it cool, making it perfect for a chilly basement or winter grow, right down at 55 to 65 degrees. By matching the species to your home's natural climate, you literally eliminate half the battle. You aren't fighting your environment, you're utilizing it. Now, you might be wondering about shiitake, which was listed as moderate difficulty. While it is actually the world's most widely cultivated specialty mushroom, it demands a lot of patience. We're talking up to 90 days to harvest. Plus, it needs specific physical triggers, like a cold shock, literally soaking the block in cold water, just to induce pinning. But rest assured, once you've mastered the easier oysters, that rich, complex umami flavor of a homegrown shiitake is an incredibly rewarding next step. On the other hand, if you're drawn to the visually stunning lion's mane, there is one major caveat. So, the crucial point is this. Lion's mane is highly sensitive to carbon dioxide. As it grows, the mycelium actually traps gases. If you don't actively ventilate your fruiting chamber at least 3 to 4 times a day to give it fresh air, it is not going to form those beautiful, classic pom-poms with that lobster-like texture. Instead, it's going to stretch out into these strange, elongated icicles. Definitely not what we want. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 3, Substrates, Feeding Your Fungi, Equipping Your Armor and Weapons. All right, now that we've got our species picked out, we need to prep the food they'll actually consume to grow, what cultivators call the bulk substrate. Now, a bulk substrate is fundamentally a nutrient-poor medium. I know, that might sound totally counterintuitive. Why not give them super-rich food? Well, because highly nutritious mediums like grain require intense pressure sterilization to prevent massive bacterial contamination. A nutrient-poor bulk substrate gives the fungi structure, a massive amount of surface area, and essential moisture retention. But the beauty is, it only requires a simple pasteurization to be perfectly safe to use. For a ton of beginners, the CVG recipe is basically the holy grail. Think of this step as a really fun kitchen science experiment. CVG stands for coco coir, vermiculite, and gypsum. You just mix a brick of carbon-rich coco coir, vermiculite for those tiny air pockets, and gypsum to prevent clumping while adding calcium. Then you pour 4 liters of boiling water right over the mix in a sealed bucket. That boiling water efficiently does the heavy lifting here. It hydrates the mix perfectly to what we call
field capacity, which feels exactly like a wrung-out sponge, and the heat pasteurizes the whole thing, killing off any competing organisms. Alternatively, if you decided to grow aggressive decomposers like those pink or blue oysters, they will fruit exceptionally well on just simple agricultural straw. You just chop it into 2 to 4 inch pieces, soak it in a hot water bath between 150 and 175 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour and a half, drain it super thoroughly, and then let it cool completely. It's an incredibly cheap, highly effective substrate that oyster mushrooms will absolutely devour.
Okay, section 4, the 6 phases of growth. From spore to table.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it demystifies the timeline. Honestly, watching this biological life cycle unfold right before your eyes is easily the most magical part of the whole process. Commercially, cultivation follows these 6 very distinct phases. But for the home monotub grower, you're largely jumping right in at step 2 with your pasteurization, and then step 3, where you mix your purchased grain spawn with your substrate. Then you just wait a few weeks for that white mycelium to colonize the entire block. After that comes the pinning phase, where these adorable tiny baby mushrooms emerge, followed rapidly by the cropping phase, where you finally harvest. It's just a brilliant chronological biological march from a plain block of coir to a beautiful harvestable cluster. But to actually get from pinning to harvest, you absolutely have to follow the monotub golden rule: misting and fanning. Mushrooms desperately need humidity above 90%, but they also exhale CO2 and constantly need fresh oxygen. As you can guess, these two needs are totally at odds. Opening the lid to fan the tub removes the CO2, but it instantly drops the humidity. That's exactly why you must lightly mist the walls of the tub, never the mushrooms directly, and fan them with the lid 2 to 3 times a day. If you ever see fuzzy, elongated stems, it means they're suffocating. They're literally stretching out, begging for more fresh air.
It's genuinely amazing to think about how far this whole process has come. Historically, farmers cultivated mushrooms like shiitake on traditional stacked natural hardwood logs. Get this, that process could take up to 6 years just for a 33% biological yield. Today, by utilizing these optimized synthetic substrates in controlled indoor environments, we've condensed that massive timeline down to mere weeks or months, vastly multiplying our biological efficiency. It's a huge agricultural leap.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Managing Pests and Diseases, Defeating the Monsters.
Now, I want you to know this up front. Every single cultivator, no matter how experienced they are, eventually deals with contamination. It just happens. Don't view it as a total disaster. View it as a vital learning opportunity to perfect your sterile technique. And your best defense here? Your own senses. A healthy grow features vibrant, bright white mycelium and smells wonderfully earthy, kind of like a forest floor right after it rains. A contaminated grow, however, is going to show its face real quick. The most dreaded enemy is trichoderma, these bright green, rapidly spreading mold patches. Or if you see weird slime or smell something sour and fermented, you've likely got a bacterial infection, which is almost always caused by a substrate that was prepared way too wet. For those of you who want to seriously level up your defense, you can start using an agar plate. This is where you really get to feel like a mad scientist in your own kitchen. Think of agar as basically fungi jello inside a petri dish. Before you ever touch your bulk substrate or green, you grow your spores on this clear agar. It acts as a brilliant early warning system. Because it's a flat, 2D surface, any rogue bacterial or mold contamination is going to be immediately visible right alongside your healthy mycelium, ensuring you only ever use perfectly clean cultures moving forward. Well, we've covered the mindset, the species, the substrate recipes, and the daily care required to become a true home cultivator. This is such a wonderfully rewarding hobby that perfectly blends biology, patience, and some serious culinary delights. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Armed with the secrets of the monotub, which gourmet species will you choose to cultivate for your very first home harvest? Will it be the warm weather pink oyster, the majestic lion's mane, or maybe the classic blue? The choice and the harvest is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy growing.